evening, everyone. This is Barry Chamish. We've got a real good show. Well, at 7 Eastern Time, of course, for my wife Cindy, is Mike Scott talking about her favorite subject, which are chemtrails. But first, at 6 Eastern Time, we've got Janet Phelan. Now, I'm just going to say this before we begin. As usual, I've been going over your notes where you're talking about duplicity, American duplicity against Israel, and you quote Henry Kissinger stating that Israel may soon cease to exist, and you add, disturbingly, there are high-positioned Jews who are complicit in this sabotage. You don't go far enough, and that's where I did. But I'm going to not focus on that. I'm going to talk about the stuff I agree or I'm confused about. Janet, are you there?
Yes, I am, Barry, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Look, I'm going to go real easy. All right. We may have you back for the other stuff. My goodness, could we have an argument on other stuff? But look, let's start with the Evian conference. FDR arranged it to save the Jews from Nazi persecution in 1938. What's the deal there?
Well, the Evian Conference, as we know, failed to accomplish anything. Hitler was actually agreeable at that point to the idea of other countries accepting his Jews. But the Evian Conference did not come to any agreement about...
Remember, this is 38. We're not talking about Poland. We're talking only Germany.
Right.
The Jews throughout Eastern Europe would have been in terrible danger, but the German Jews could have been saved.
Well, you know, the major players here, Great Britain, would not even bring up the fact that the U.S. was not even filling its quotas for Jewish immigrants, and the U.S. Wouldn't bring up the possibility of British-governed Palestine as an option for the refugees.
Yeah, so well, why did the British allow 70,000 Jews from Germany to go straight to Palestine? Not so simple. I tell you, it's not so simple. There were deals.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead, please.
No. That's where I get argumentative, and I kind of know stuff that Jewish complicity, this is a side you kind of overlook. But look, you say the conference accomplished nothing. So why did FDR call it, all right? Why?
Well, I don't believe he's here to defend himself, but let's just say maybe FDR himself wasn't particularly pro-Jewish, was he?
It doesn't matter. Why call the Evian conference to save the Jews, just not have it?
I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, because that's a very troubling question, isn't it?
Oh, you don't have an answer, do you?
If you do, I'd love to hear it, Barry.
It's not mine. It's yours to... No. If we went to that, I'd have my own show and blast off. It's up to you. Why, if he's not going to accomplish anything for the Jews, call the conference?
Well, we can see that there was a repeat, wasn't there, several years later?
No, don't go there. You're skipping over this.
Barry, I've already said I don't have an answer to this. If you do, please tell us.
All right, we're going to skip then. We will. I know where you're going with this, and that's Bermuda, and we'll get to there. But my goodness, you don't have the answer. All right. Oh, we're going to have to skip. That was a pretty serious discussion here.
Well, Barry, the whole purpose of doing radio is to elucidate and to inform people. And, I'm going with what I know. And if you have, information to share with us, I would sure love to hear it.
Maybe
the
he
listening
knew the
audience
Holocaust was coming, and maybe he wanted to clear his name. I don't know. But otherwise, why have this conference, okay? Straight out. Golda Meir was sent by the Jewish Agency to watch over the proceedings. You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
You know that she was the prime minister during the Yom Kippur War that Israel almost lost, right?
Yes, I do.
All right, let's start putting two and two together and we'll get to five. All right. All right, let's skip this. It's not for me to do this stuff. All right, let's go all the way to America, 1941. Now, you're quoting John Loftus, and I got to tell you, I met the guy and I saw him speak, and I really admired his book, but I sure didn't admire him in person. I mean, he skipped over CFR, he skipped over everything, all right? But the quote from Loftus Aarons is that J. Edgar Hoover began electronic surveillance of all Jews within the United States in 1941. That's 3 million Jews. All right, again, I'm going to ask you why.
Well, we can say without too much hesitation that J. Edgar Hoover believed that Jewish people were potential Bolsheviks, that they were not inherently faithful, loyal to the United States. That's one answer, isn't it?
Well, 3 million is an awful lot of wiretaps. I don't think they have the potential, but actually, that's a decent answer. There were all kinds of commies amongst them. Uh, wiretaps against the commies would have been enough.
Well, anti-Semitism runs very deep in the U.S., doesn't it?
Well, this article is terribly accurate, but you're not diving into that awful head of the Jews who were, oh gosh, I'm not going into this. I'm going to let you go and just talk about Rabbi Stephen Wise. Go with it.
Well, I think what you're bringing up here is the complicity among Jews, and I think that this is terribly important, Barry, because as we move further along in the article and we get into, what is the predictive aspect of the article, this complicity among Jews to destroy other Jews, raises its ugly head. So let's just put it out there. There are collaborators. There were collaborators back then, and I think there are very likely collaborators now. So yeah,
very
Steve
likely,
Wise,
very likely. Oh gosh almighty, they're at work. Look,
I can name some of them.
Stephen Wise.
Okay, let's talk about Stephen Wise. Well, Stephen Wise, I think, is a very troubling figure. He was head of the U.S. Jewish Congress at the time.
It's called the American Jewish Congress, but that's okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. He was head of the American Jewish Congress at the time that all this nasty business was going on in Eastern Europe. And Wise received a report that Jews were being exterminated in Eastern Europe, and Wise sat on the report. Correct?
Yep, 1942, just so you know, November 42, he got the report.
Now, there have been some very troubling things published about Stephen Wise that cast even graver doubts on where his true sympathies lay. You're aware.
Well, he was a womanizer. You don't mean that, do you?
No, I don't mean that he was a womanizer.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've read,
What are we talking about then?
Well, possibly a Sabbatean Jew?
No proof of that. He was certainly a Reformed Jew. And look, don't dive where there is no proof. We do have proof that Undersecretary of State Sumner Welles, in, I believe it was September of 42, told them to hush up on the report.
And like a good little minion, he did.
For 2 months. He was given a go-ahead by Welles, and then he released the report.
And lo and behold, what did the media do with the report? They buried it, did they not?
Well, again, okay, they did. Um, you're saying that in the 2 months between telling Wise to shut up, and I say he was blackmailed because of his womanizing, frankly. But neither here nor there. He shut up for 2 months just in time to get the media all in line.
The media in line to not, use this as a big headline story.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we're moving on through the history here for a purpose, because as we know, the history books tend to pat America on the back. We defeated the Nazis, we freed the Jews, etc. And the true history of U.S. sabotage of the Jewish people is something else entirely. And the reason I think to revisit this history is because of what's happening now. So, do you want to move on through
Oh, you name it. Go to it. You want to do Bermuda now? Now I think it
Yeah.
fits.
Okay. Well, there was another conference, and that was in April of 1943, when at the time that, shall we say, the gloves were off concerning the fate of the Jews in Eastern Europe. And there was another conference called, this time in a Bermuda Beach resort. And, this was again to discuss the fate of the Jews trapped in Eastern Europe. And once again, there was no assistance offered. And in fact, this conference for some period of time was kept secret from the public.
Oh, what's that noise?
Sorry, I'm in a public place. I'm trying to mute when I'm not talking, but there's
Oh,
a bit of noise in
gosh.
the
You're
background.
phoning
Sorry
from the
about that.
cafe, huh? All right.
Can't phone
Now,
from my house, so yeah.
in 43, you had a great time. Bermuda, great resort, beautiful beach. And it was between the American and British. All right. Go on.
Well, once again, the U.S. and British had a secret handshake, and the U.S. refused to lift the quotas, immigration quotas, and the British refused to discuss Palestine as a possible place of refuge.
Except
Sounds
they're
like everything.
accepting tens of thousands of Jews from Germany all the way through the war. But fine.
Well, certain Jews. I think it was just certain
Yes,
Jews, wasn't it?
right. That's right.
Certain kinds of Jews. Do you want
Yes,
to
that's
elaborate on that?
right.
Because I think
Yes.
you know a lot more about that than I do. Certain kinds of Jews.
Polish Jews who were more likely to be religious and right wing and whatever, they were slaughtered. Uh, German Jews who went through labor Zionist camps and were properly infiltrated and whatever, they were allowed to Palestine by the British. They opened the doors to them. It's a very messy story.
So religious Jews were not welcome, but secular Jews were? Is that sort of.
Well, secular German Jews, they didn't really like, they wanted their kind of labor Zionists. It's an awful story. It bothers me a lot even to think about it.
Well, we can move on. There was
Oh,
a.
I wouldn't move on. You've got all
Oh,
kinds of points here.
well,
You said they turned down a proposal to approach Hitler. This is 1943, where they were in the middle of a war. Who would approach him?
well, from what I understand, Hitler had previously shown himself to be willing to release
That was
Jews.
5 years ago. Now you're in the
Hmm.
war. The British are bombing Germany. The Germans failed a miracle, the Battle of Britain. They failed to bring down Britain, but they sure tried. Who would approach Hitler? Hey, Adolf, we got a proposal for you. Come on, try and imagine that.
Well, it doesn't look like any proposals were ever actually
I don't
delivered.
think he would have allowed them to stay for supper. All right. They were in the midst of war.
Well, there were supply ships that
Yeah.
were
And they
going
were
over
going to
to.
get through, and the Germans wouldn't have sunk them. You've got
Well,
submarines.
the supply ships were getting through to Europe, and they were coming back empty. And so the idea, I believe, at Bermuda, was that they could, get some Jews out of there, but U.S. and Great Britain didn't want to.
I don't think they could have at that point, frankly. But neither here nor there. What you're saying is that the British declined to discuss Palestine as a refuge place. Well, first of all, they didn't decline German Jews. They founded the modern Israel, the 70,000 Jews from Germany.
And how many Jews were originally in Germany?
Originally, there were 500,000. You got a couple 100,000 to America, a miracle of miracles. And those who went to the labor Zionist camps went to Palestine.
So you're saying German Jews didn't get killed over there?
They had a lot of warning that this place wasn't good for them anymore. From 33 on, their lives became a misery. They emigrated if they could get away with it. When they couldn't get away with it, they ended up in Palestine after going through labor Zionist camps. And not many of them, but these 70,000 were the core of what we call modern Israel.
70,000 out of 500,000. Okay. So,
Well, actually, 70,000 out of 200,000 or so that remained in Germany. But neither here nor there. The labor Zionists got their. Look, Germany banned all Jewish organizations, all of them, except labor Zionism. You're missing all kinds of things here. I'm going to go on to stuff you're not missing. Go to James Forrestal. Let's go straight to the stuff where you're strongest. Start off with James Forrestal, Secretary of Defense. All right, he was Truman's Secretary of Defense. What do you know about him?
well, James Forrestal was the leader of a cabal within the Truman administration, which was working behind Truman's back to sabotage Israel's creation.
That's it? You're not going to go into his ties to Standard Oil of New Jersey, as Undersecretary of the Navy in 41. Come on, widen this.
Actually, we just had so much noise in the background, I was trying to block it out, so that's kind of why I shut up there. Yeah, Forrestal had a lot of very deep ties. He served on the board of the IG Farben-controlled General Aniline and Film Corporation, and he also, while he was Undersecretary of the Navy in 1941, he granted immunity to Standard Oil of New Jersey, whose ships were supplying the Nazis with oil. There was an awful lot of, shall we say, backroom deals being done with American corporations and the Nazis before the war and during the war.
Until December 7th.
Yeah. So another player with Standard Oil of New Jersey was Nelson Rockefeller, who was supplying the Nazis with the oil, and also had control over Chase National Bank, which in 1939 had secured a $25 million loan for the Nazis. Now, Nelson Rockefeller turns out to be rather important in this scenario, given what ended up in front of the UN in terms of the partition of Israel-Palestine back in the late 40s, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Rockefeller turned out to be the major dude, actually, because Rockefeller's involvement with South America, which was actually rather interesting. He was he basically controlled the South American vote at the UN, and prior to the vote on the partition, the South American countries had, were pretty much against the creation of Israel. So, as reported by John Loftus in this rather amazing book, The Secret War Against the Jews, what ended up happening was Nelson Rockefeller was blackmailed. And he was blackmailed, according to Loftus, concerning all of this pro-Nazi activity that he'd been involved with. And lo and behold, all of those anti-partition South American countries suddenly shifted their vote, and that's how Israel got basically pushed through the UN, right?
How do you think he convinced them?
Well, that's that's a good question too. What I understand is that a lot of the former Nazis had fled Eastern Europe and were now in South America.
Well, actually, they fled Germany.
Okay, all right. They fled Germany and they were in South America. And it's my understanding that part of the deal was that the Nazi hunters were going to back off and not go after all those Nazis who'd fled to South America, and that was part of the deal.
Good explanation. All right, I hadn't considered that. I figured some sort of economic. He was a Assistant Secretary of State for Latin American Affairs. He just told them, "You're not going to get any aid from us forever and ever, but yours is better." I like your explanation way better. All right, so
maybe both of them work. Kind of hand in hand, huh?
Well, I'm so glad he was our vice president. Good things come out of all this, right?
Don't be sarcastic, Barry.
Oh, good, you caught me. All righty. And by the way, he didn't live long either. I got to tell you, he died of a heart attack in his 50s. But neither here nor there. When we come back, we're going to dive again, and I'm going to skip over stuff. Oh, gosh, what I know about Kissinger and Rabin and Diane and stuff. Let's just say it's an awful story. It truly is. And I'm not being rewarded for it. I'm just getting poorer and poorer. It's not a good thing to know. All right, just to let you know that. But just so you know, America did not arm Israel, not for the 48 war. As you state, that was Czechoslovakia. 67 war was France. It wasn't until after the 73 war that America started aiding Israel.
So, are we going to break now, or
you're not going to comment on that?
Well,
it was your observation.
Well, actually, some very interesting things started to happen in the early 70s under President Nixon, which point the way, I think, towards the predictive aspect of the situation, this article that I've written, and hopefully we'll get into that when we come back.
No, we're not going to, because we'll fight. Unfortunately, I actually worked on that, and I got real inside info, and it's not what you're saying here. But nonetheless, we'll be back in 3 minutes. You'll plug yourself, I'll plug myself, and away we go with the stuff that you've got down pat, and I like a lot. We'll see you in 3 minutes, folks. This is Barry Chamish with Jack Phelan.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Hi, folks. It's Barry Chamish. Interesting interview. All my books are at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. Write my name in the search box. Chamish. I think the book you want for this discussion is Save Israel. And David Salmon, thank you for www.barrychamish.com. Janet, your turn.
Well, my website is janetphelan.com. I'm currently writing for New Eastern Outlook, which is a dual English-Russian language geopolitical journal published out of Moscow. So in order to look at my articles for the last couple of years, I would suggest you go to New Eastern Outlook and take a look there. My website is not up to date, but my recent stuff is at New Eastern Outlook.
.com.
No, it's not neweasternoutlook.com. But if you Google New Eastern Outlook, you will find the geopolitical journal. And my book, which was published last year, is entitled Exile. And I think the fundamental concerns that are advanced in the book are quite in line with some of the details that we're going through today. The book discusses basically the fate of my mother and the murder of my mother and what happened in my life as I attempted to move to protect her prior to her ultimate demise,
I've
and
read it,
ended up
folks.
fleeing.
I
Mm.
recommend it. It's called Exile. And how do you get that?
My book is available right now on thebookpatch.com, and it is now in an ebook, which is quite a bit less expensive than ordering the hard copy.
All right, let's go to this stuff. First, I'm gonna hit you where you're really wrong, and then when you're really right. First of all, you're saying the Iron Dome, Israel's short-range incoming missile protection, does not work at all. That's ridiculous. There have been hundreds of witnesses who videoed the Iron Dome knocking down missiles. All right, that's number one. But number two,
I'd like to
it,
say something about that, Barry, because there have been studies now come out from MIT and other, respectable institutions, which are, form the foundation of my concerns about the Iron Dome. Um, so those are scientific studies.
and what they decide these videos are all phony.
They've done their own videos.
All right. Uh, uh, People with cell phones now are capturing missiles getting blown out of the air. But all right, neither here nor there. Here's where I'm really disturbed, and you've got to help me out here. You quote a Canadian intelligence officer claiming that the CIA is fronting, well, you put in quotes, independent media websites which are dedicated to blurring the lines between the Israeli people and the Jewish people and promoting wholesale destruction of both. All right, who was the Canadian intelligence officer?
I don't have his permission to name him. Um, he's somebody that I had quite a bit of contact with for the 2 years that I was up in Toronto.
Oh, that hurts. Can you give initials or something?
Yeah, AM. The initials are AM.
All right, because he's right. You've got Jews who do have websites that are ridiculously not promoting Israel. Now, who are they? What are they? What are we talking about here?
Well, there are a number of individuals, groups of individuals. I think there's a woman named, was it Lasha Darkmoon, who is a major contributor to these websites. And but there are so many of them now. I mean, surfing the web, it's impossible not to run into them. And it seems like the primary impetus behind these writers and these websites, some of which, according to AM, are definitely CIA fronts. The impetus is to, is to cast Israel as a monster, and also by implication to therefore taint all the Jewish people in the same manner. And this is a problem. Political governments tend to use force to promote their agendas. And people, there are people who are concerned about the actions of the state of Israel. And in some instances, I am one of them. However, to therefore tar an entire group of people because a government has done things that are questionable, when you start
It's done things that
blurring.
are questionable to its own people. All right. Oh gosh. All right. Sorry.
Well, I am not, I am not happy with a lot of the actions of the state of Israel, but that doesn't mean I'm an anti-Semite, and that does not mean that I think the Jewish people, need to pay for this. But the websites that I'm referring to are melding the two things: the actions of the state of Israel, which they declare to be horrific, and therefore the Jews have to go. And that's where the problem starts, I believe.
I believe you should be looking towards these socialist commies of the 40s that Hoover apparently was listening to. look for Peace Now, Israel. There are bigger sites than, I don't know who Darkov is, but there are mainstream sites that are attacking Israel nonstop.
Yes, and it's actually it's become. I think it somehow it's becoming effective. I think because
It's totally
so
effective. Half
yes.
the Oh gosh, the Jewish people are collapsing. I'm here. I know they exist, but you wouldn't know it. All right, where I am in Florida, there's a Jewish community. You wouldn't know it anymore.
Well, I've had some contact with some of these highly placed Jewish people in the United States, ones whom I am now raising some questions about, what their real intentionality is. For example, I'll name some names here. A while ago, I wrote an article concerning a woman named Barbara Stone whose mother had gone into an adult guardianship, and there was so much fraud and so much terrible stuff happening to her mother. And then this terrible stuff started happening to Barbara. Barbara happens to be Jewish. And along the way, she contacted the Holocaust Museum, trying to get some sort of attention paid to the atrocious things happening to her mother and to her. And I picked up on this, and I contacted the Holocaust Museum, and they
What
just
she was she a Holocaust survivor?
there are those who are viewing what's happening in adult guardianships as essentially an attack on an entire group of people, the elderly and disabled, which for some people eerily reflects back
I
to
don't think the Holocaust Museum would spend 2 seconds talking about this issue. Their
well, let me
issue of
tell you.
the
Well, wait a minute. They have what is called a committee of conscience, and their committee of conscience is dedicated to preventing acts of genocide throughout the world. Now, there are those who are viewing what's happening to the elderly and disabled under these adult guardianships who believe that we are seeing a T4 precursor. Barry, do you know who heads up their committee of conscience at the U.S. Holocaust Museum? None other than the former head of the Department of Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff, author of the USA Patriot Act. Now, we got a problem here. These people aren't going to lift a finger for targeted groups. They're just not going to do it. In fact, I would say that Michael Chertoff is himself, through the authorship of the USA Patriot Act, involved in laying the groundwork for this kind of targeting.
Ta-da! You did it. You got one. All right. All right.
Yay.
You put it together for me. Michael Chertoff is the head of the Committee of Conscience, and also wrote if you're correct about this, wrote the American post 9/11. What was the act called?
The USA Patriot Act.
There we go. All right.
Big Brother Incorporated. Yes.
All right. That was very good.
I'm going to name another name too. With the Southern Poverty Law Center, there is an individual named Mark Potok. Happens to be Jewish. Okay.
Yeah, his father is Chaim.
Oh no, not really.
Why is that?
The writer. The writer.
Yes, he wrote
That's
Exodus.
his father?
I believe so.
I didn't know that. Well, Mark Potok was contacted by me personally concerning what was revealed in my book, Exile. Now, one of the first things that Mark Potok had to say to me was that he understood, without even looking at my book, he understood that I had done a show by a conspiracist named Barry Chamish. And
they follow me all the way up to...
And he was not going... He says, if you're involved with conspiracists like that, I can't have anything to do with you. So I sent him a
I'm very flattered you said that.
Hmm.
I don't understand why uh, I'm not living comfortably just for. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Well, so I responded to him rather stiffly, and I said, "You haven't even looked at my book, so you're just going to, smear me with some sort of bizarre guilt by association without even looking at the material?" So he went ahead and read the book, and from that point on, he just won't even talk to me. Now,
You
he's a
know,
Jewish
my
person.
latest article was about the religious Zionists absolutely refusing anymore to accept the utter lies surrounding the Rabin assassination. Uh, of course, I'm having an effect, but thank you for telling me how. Thank you. That was
Sure,
heartwarming
anytime.
in its own way.
So, I know we've only got maybe 10 minutes left, and I really want to hit home on why all this history I think is so important, because I don't believe that the sabotage, and there were other instances discussed in the article. The article again is entitled "Israel the Psyop," and you can find it at New Eastern Outlook. But I don't believe that the sabotage ever stopped. And if you look at the events, if you fast forward to September 11th and you look at the events that have taken place in the Middle East since that time, all that has really happened, uh, besides countries being invaded and whole populations, being terrorized, is that a greater peace has not been secured, and Israel has been put into a far more fragile position than it was before. And
And
what
you think that inviting the PLO back, all right, Yasser Arafat is a good guy. Let's invite him back to the West Bank and let's have a real peace. You think that made any logical sense to anybody?
I think that there are so many deceptions going on right now concerning the whole cauldron of the Middle East. And I think the deceptions surrounding Israel are actually pivotal in this as well. And for example, we now have an invasion of Syria. Okay, what has Syria said? Syria has said, if you attack us, we're going to attack Israel.
Well, they
Now,
could. They didn't have the power. All right, they can bluster all they want, but that was pure bluster.
well, you may say it's pure bluster, but
Yeah, what do you say?
I'm saying that the U.S. is really creating a situation that is going to make Israel's continued viability possibly impossible.
No
Well, that was
kidding.
I
No
think that the
kidding.
U.S. is setting Israel up.
No kidding. No kidding. Look, you go on. You have the plan. You're saying next, according to the plan, is to get Jews in the diaspora deployed in a manner to betray Israel, but make America look like a good guy. Dive into this.
Thank you, Barry. Um, Technology exists in the United States to selectively target civilian populations. And as you may recall, Barry, back in 2004, when I first made contact with you, I was working on this story about the use of water systems to selectively target populations. And you helped me with this article. You did some research about some of the individuals who were involved in some of these water pipe companies, and you came up with some very shocking things. And I went ahead and included some of this research
I
that
don't
you did in
recall
my
this. I
articles.
gotta tell
Oh,
you.
I do. I recall it very well. You researched the some of the leaders of U.S. Pipe, and what you found out was actually very helpful in delineating, what the science behind this selective targeting is actually all about. So we do have technologies that could selectively deliver another Holocaust to
Oh, you
pre-selected,
betcha. Oh, you're talking about
populations.
water? Oh, why bother? You got better ones.
We got water, we got other things as well, but water is a really good sucker punch because nobody's going to expect it. Everybody is drinking water or bathing in water. I mean,
Yeah,
water
but
is
Israel's got
universal.
more water per capita than anyone. I mean, they're a leader in. All right, let's skip over this. All right, let's go back to getting the Jews in America to betray Israel while making America look like it's a major ally. Let's talk about this, and don't use water.
Well, I don't believe I said that they're going to get the U.S. Jews to betray Israel. I don't believe I said that.
I'll
If
give
that's
you the
something,
quote if you want. We would need
yeah.
to address those in the diaspora. I have the quote. I'm not going to quote it. Yes, you did.
No, I've got my article right in front of me. I have nothing. I have nothing here about the U.S. Jews betraying Israel.
Deployed in a manner in which the U.S. would keep its own involvement a secret. All right. You interpret that differently, then fine.
Yeah. Step two would need to address. I'm quoting from the article. Step two. This is after Israel is destroyed by, whomever in the Middle East. Step two would need to address those in the diaspora and would also need to be deployed in a manner in which the U.S. could keep its own involvement a secret and thereby retain its public relations persona as, quote, leader of the free world.
There we go. That's a good description. And I think that's what's happening, and it always has. Look, I was going to end the show with Clinton and Benghazi. I'll have you back maybe even next week. I got a ton of things. But look, where you're really wrong is, well, here's a quote. Richard Nixon was given a briefing on the intent of the Arabs to attack Israel Yom Kippur, and he sat on the report and didn't alert his ally. Boy, are you wrong. Kissinger was sitting with Diane and Rabin. They were pulling back Israeli troops. Israel didn't attack. Oh, gosh, are you wrong on this? But, all right, I said it.
Well, I'm interested. I'm searching for the truth here, and a lot of what, not everything in the article relied on Loftus, but a lot of the information did. So if you've got other information, I think we should
I
definitely do
got
another show and
information
talk about it.
coming
Yeah,
out of my ears. Are
I
you
bet you
joking? I
do.
spent years on this man. He, I don't know what he was, but he was a drinker, and he he agreed to let Diane. He was the head of the IDF. Pull back all 600 Israeli troops from the Suez Canal. They were slaughtered. Uh, you have this wrong. Okay, I won't dive into it. And the same thing with Iran Contra. This Paris blackmailed the Americans. You've got Israel as a fall guy. Believe me, it was not Israel as a fall guy here.
Well, it's my understanding that Israel wasn't even brought into the
You were
picture.
wrong. All
Hmm?
right, you were
Well,
wrong. My friend Joel Bainman wrote the ultimate book on Iran Contra, Crimes of a President, in which Paris and you're wrong. Okay, straight out. You're taking you're scraping the surface, and you got it wrong. Now, I'm just going to let you finish on Benghazi and Clinton in a big hurry. What is going on that she is covering up for the real Benghazi story? Go to it.
well, I don't know if there's really enough time left.
Yeah, we have enough. Go to it. You got 5 good minutes.
Well, Hillary is Hillary basically lied to the American people, and tried to pass the Benghazi attack off as a spontaneous response to a YouTube video, anti-Muslim YouTube video, when she knew very well that this was a planned attack that actually must have taken weeks to plan. Furthermore, one of the concerning things is one of the individuals who died in Benghazi had posted something on Facebook earlier that day expressing his fear that they would even survive that night. So there was some knowledge, foreknowledge that an attack was to
And
be
that
launched.
Benghazi, the compound, wasn't even guarded by the Marine Security Group.
Well, that's another big thing. I mean, the Marine Security Group is there to guard consulates and so forth, embassies in fragile areas where there is a lot of tumult, and there certainly there was a lot of tumult going on in Benghazi prior to the attacks on the embassy. But that embassy was that consulate, that compound was really hung out to dry, and Hillary
and they were watching it live.
Yeah, they were watching it
from
live.
the White House.
Right.
Da. Here's Benghazi. They were watching like a show.
Yeah, I know. So Hillary wants to be president, and she wants us all to believe that she's there to protect us, and she's not. She's just not, and she didn't protect her own people in Benghazi, and it's entirely possible that the real scenario here is even uglier than that.
Oh, I'm sure it is. And look, Obama, in his own way, I've been reluctant to admit how really anti-American he is, but he told the American people it would be un-American not to settle Syrian refugees in America. I saw this last night. What on earth is going on? The timing was so stupid.
Well, one always has to look at who gains. What when an event of any magnitude, Benghazi, the French terror attacks, what is the fallout and who gains? And on that note, I want to thank you very much for having me on, Barry. Once again, my book is entitled Exile, and it certainly deals...
Who gained? Before you go off, you posed the question, who gained?
There may have been people who died in that attack who had become, for some reason, inconvenient.
Well, I suppose the fact that a punk rock band, something Death, was playing wasn't entirely coincidental. There are reasons to dive into this a bit deeper.
Oh, you're talking about France now.
What else?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were back on Benghazi. Well, what I think may be going on with France, after the Charlie Hebdo attack, there was draconian new legislation that was passed in France. Do you know that it's now legal for the French government to put covert cameras and recording devices in private homes?
Perfect. Well, you hit it right at the end. We had a very lively and full discussion. This has been Janet Phelan. Coming up, I hope this next one works, is Mike Scott about chemtrails. And what can you say, Jan? Make sure you listen to him as well. We may be allies in some sort of cause here, okay?
Thank you, Barry.
Folks, I'll see you in 7 minutes. This is Barry Chamish.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldAndSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. A soccer game in Germany is being rescheduled after authorities canceled the event and evacuated the stadium Tuesday. A German news agency quotes the police chief in Hanover as saying there was concrete information about a bomb threat. Correspondent Nesha Starchevic reports fans seemingly took things in stride.
Everybody left without panic, calmly. There were no incidents.
When it comes to Syrian refugees coming to the U.S., many people are concerned about security, pointing to the Paris attacks and other incidents they say could happen here if a terrorist were to come into the U.S. Even so, the Obama administration and many news personalities say it would be un-American for the U.S. not to open its arms to refugees. Fox News reporter Todd Starnes made these comments to AFA Today.
Not allowing Muslims into the country is un-American. And yet, the same administration believes that deporting Christians is constitutional. Now, refer people back to last year, when the Obama administration fought tooth and nail to have the Romeike family, a Christian family from Germany, thrown out of the country because they wanted to homeschool their children. Somebody needs to explain to me why it's okay to deport Christians, but it's okay to import Muslims.
U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch told a House committee Tuesday that while there are challenges in vetting refugees from Syria, the U.S. is much better equipped than countries in Europe. Christians in Nepal are adapting to the recent changes in that country's constitution.
Back in September, Nepal's president signed a new constitution completing the transition the South Asian nation began in 2008 from the world